Okay, so continuing on with where we left off in the last session, we're going to cover the math functions dialog in itself, not the functions themselves, but just really just launching and using the dialog. So, how do you launch the math functions dialog? You can do a couple of things. But first is you select one or more data sets. And if you're going to operate on a single data set and you don't need any supporting data sets, or you don't need any other data sets to tabulate or plot alongside the computed data set, then you can select just a single data set. And I assume you still remember the selection rules about whether something's highlighted in the list selection or if it's listed in the selected data sets down below, how to do that. You know, the ones down below take precedence. But you select one or more data sets. Again, multiple data sets if you need either something to compare to or another data set to operate on the main data set with. And then you can do several things. You can click the F of X button, FX, up there in the toolbar. You can select tools, math functions, or Control M. So you see those things displayed there on the example on the screen. So here is the math functions dialog. It's busy. It's got several parts, and we'll cover them one by one. So let's get started. Let's start with the menu bar. File, edit, display, and help. We're not going to worry about the help right now, but I mentioned in the previous session that you can do save or save as, and so you can do those either from the menu bar, or you can do them from the toolbar. And so looking here at the menu bar, we see they're on the File menu, Save and Save As. They're grayed out right now because we don't have any computed data set. The Edit menu is where if you have gotten to a place that you don't desire to continue, you created a computed data set, and you said, no, that's not what I want. You can say Edit, Restore Original Data, and everything will be back to where it was when you launched the math functions dialog. So it's kind of an undo. It doesn't undo anything you've actually stored to DSS, but up until that point, it will restore everything to the state it was when you first launched the dialog. The display is an important menu item here on the menu bar. The tabulate, plot, and tabulate in Excel are all available on the toolbar as well, and we'll see that in the next slide. But there's those two top ones: original data with computed in all data sets. And so those are very handy when you go to plot or tabulate your computed data. If you don't have any of those selected, it will just plot the computed data set. And that may be all you want to see, but very often it's helpful to see the change from the original data set to the computed data set. So you'll select display original data with computed, and then when you go to plot or display, it'll put them side by side and you can easily compare them. Now, if you have multiple data sets selected when you launch the math functions dialog, sometimes those are only for visual references or clues, and you want to see them alongside a plot of the computed data set, let's say. So if you did that, then you can say, go to the display menu and select all data sets. Then when you plot or display, it will do that for all of the data sets that you had selected when you launched the math functions dialog. Again, the original data set with computed and all data sets are available only here on the menu bar. You can't get them from the toolbar. Okay, so speaking of the toolbar, let's go ahead and go to it. It just has icons for the things we just saw. From left to right, it's a save, save as, plot, tabulate, and tabulate in Excel. And so those are the icons. There's not much to the toolbar, but it's a quick access, so you don't have to necessarily go to the menu bar for everything. Again, plotting and tabulating the original data set with a computed or all data sets is not available from the toolbar. You have to select that from the menu bar. Okay, Next thing we have to look at is our selected data set. If you launch the Math Functions Dialog with only a single data set, it will be, by default, it'll show up in the selected data set. If you launched the Math Functions Dialog with multiple data sets, the one that you consider the primary or the selected one to operate on may not be automatically in this drop down. So you can simply drop down the combo box, or excuse me, it's not a combo box, it's just simply a list box. You can drop it down and select the one that you want to be considered the main data set or the selected data set to perform the computation on, to perform the math function on. Okay, let's go on from there. Next we have our category tabs. And I mentioned in the previous session we have these 6 categories, and each one has their own operators, and here's where you can select those. You select a category you want by the tab on the Math Functions Dialog. And then within a given category, there's a drop down, a list box for you to select what operator you want under that category. Now, it says it says operator on all of the tabs except statistics. It doesn't say operator over there, it says type. But it's really the same thing. What statistics operation do you want, or what statistical type do you want to see? So that's, I don't know why it's different there, but it is. Across all 6 tabs, I think I counted up, we have 63 different operators. And it might take a little bit for you to get used to which operation is under which tab. They try to be grouped logically, but sometimes there's a couple of different places something could go, and so you may have to look at this tab, drop down the list, and see if what you want is there. If not, go to another tab, drop down the list, and see if what you want is there. But all 63 operators are selectable by a combination of the category tab and the select operation. So, depending on what operator you're using, this portion of the dialog may look completely different. They tend to look similar for most operations, but some operations have specialized things to select. Some operations don't necessarily have multiple data sets allowed, so you can't necessarily see all that. But we're looking here at simply, adding something to a selected data set. And you can see it says, well, we can add a constant or a data set. And if we're going to add a constant, there's a place for us to enter the number. If we're going to add a data set, there's a place for us to select which data set we're going to add. So that's specific to this operator, and it will look different for different operators. And then again, most operators, not all of them, but most operators have a spot to specify, to have all the data sets that were selected when you launch the dialog to show up. And so if you are going to operate with another data set, for example, in this one, if we're going to add 2 data sets, we would set the selected data set above, and then we would choose which data set to add from this list. And then the last thing on the Math Functions Dialog itself is the compute button. And the compute button is what you hit when you want to compute. You see it's grayed out here. And if you look down below there on the status bar at the very bottom of the Math Function Dialog, it says no constant entered. How does it know we want a constant? Well, we've selected it up above, but we haven't entered a constant to use. If we went back up and entered a number in that field, then the compute button would be enabled, and then we could click it, and then the status bar would change to say something like, computation complete, to let you know you have already performed this. So that is the Math Functions Dialog in a nutshell. It's how you launch it. It's all the different pieces and parts of it. And now, in the next sections coming up, or the next sessions in this video series coming up, we'll start looking at the actual operations in each of these tabs. And so we can look at what they do and what you can do with them. Stay tuned.